Hi. So yeah, I'm back with the day 6, and thank you for all your comments on all the earlier videos. As per the comments, and as we discussed in the last time, let's try to modify that report and add sales header comment on the same report, and then we'll see how we can have multiple table in the layout, and how we what we need to change in the layout to print them. So let's first try to understand what are sales header comments. So last time, if you remember, we were using these three documents, and from the lines we went to comments, right? And we added some comments. And if we go to help about this page, the filter says that it is related to the sales line based on the sales order, as in document type order, the document number, and the document line number as 1000, which is the line number of the sales line. Now today what we are going to do is we are going to add header comments. You can take it as special instructions for your order that you want to print on your report, or the information which are common to the whole order, not dependent on the lines and all. So here you can see on the navigate tab that there is comments. If you click on comments, and let's try to add some comments on this sales order. The items will be shipped after payment, okay, and items in this order will be packed in one container. Okay, now let's go and see how they are related. So if I again go to help about this page and go to filters, it says the document type and the number, but if you see, the document line number is 0, and based on this, system identifies that is it a header comment or is it a line comment. So all the header comments have the document line number as 0. So that's what we learned. Okay, so let's add some other comments here on the second order, which is this order is for customer 38128456. Order will be shipped via road. Taxes will be paid by customers. Let's assume that these are the 3 comments for this order, and there are the 2 comments for this order, and the first one which does not have anything, so we are not adding anything on that. So okay, let's start our job, and let's start with adding that table into the report. So as we saw, the table is same, which is sales comment line. So I'll just add here, or you can add here, that that hardly differs, but let me add a data item which is sales comment line, and this time I'll say it as header comment because the names cannot be same, as we discussed in the earlier videos. Save it. Okay, and then again what I need is just a comment from that table. So I'll add just comment, and the header comments are added, right? That's what we wanted, what we did. Do we want to run it and then see how my data set is impacted with that? So let's try to run it and then see what's the impact on data set. How we do that? Help about this report and preview it. Nothing prints, and let's see the data set. So if you see, the data set is huge. If you remember from the earlier time, we just wanted first to agree with the data set and then we will go to the design. So I don't seems to be agreeing with the data set because these all are for the same order, which is 1001, which does not have any lines, any description. Then if I go down, I see these many lines, or I'll start from here, for the same order again. If you see, the count will be kind of similar, and then here I have my header comments here. They are printing, but if you see that these are seems to be header comment, but these seems to be the line comments which are printing over there. So let's go back to the designer and first try to do some modification so that we buy in with our data set. So again, let's go to the property of this header comment that we added, and we see that there is no link on this data item, and that's why it's going, you know, with multiple records. So let's try to add that relationship which we learned. Document type and number is linked to the document type of sales header and the number of sales header. Do we want to link the document line number? But it requires a field. I cannot say 0 because that's not a valid value. So I'll delete it, and we'll see how we can add that later. Now that's done. Now let's run it and let's see again what happened to our data set. Okay, I get some output, but I should be happy or should not be. Let's see that. So here are something that are started, you know, appearing on the blank item is gone, and I get less number of rows than the earlier time. But if I extend this, I still can see that these two are my line comments, and the same goes here. These four are my line comments. So I'm still have some problem that this column should only print header comments, and that is happening because these records which are related to the header comments have the document line number as 0, but these have actually the line number, document line number. So somehow we need to specify that this data item should only bring the items which are only with document line number 0, and we can do that here on data item table view property. Let's drill it down and see what the table filter are. So I can say document line number is constant to 0. That means it will only bring my line comments, header comments, sorry. So let's run it and see. Okay, let's open the data set. If you see now, my header comments are actually printing only those which I added in the database. So now my data set seems to be what I wanted, and I'll go ahead and do it, the changes in the layout. But when the header comments are printing, other information are blank, because this, if you see the designer, the sales comment line and the sales line are indented at the same time. So first system is trying to execute the first child, and then system is trying to execute the second child, and which again have a child. So when this child is executing, this is not being executing, so it's blank, and when this one is executing, then this one is blank. So you can see it here that when the sales comment header are printing, everything else is blank, and when the body details and the comments, line comments are printing, my header comments are blank. That means the data set is correct. Now let's go to the layout and see what changes I have to do to print it in a format. Now header comment cannot be added into the lines because they are independent of line. You can add them at at this level, which is the sales header group, somewhere outside. But let's try to add a separate table and see how then we link those multiple tables. So I went ahead and I inserted a table, because I can have multiple comments on the sales header, so I cannot use header. I'll use the body section of that report, of the table, and I'll merge these cells. Then, as we know, you can add it from here, or you can add it from the, let me open that, you can add it from here. So let's add it this time here, comment sales header. Okay, let me do it from here, comment sales header, added. Do I need a header for this? I still don't know, so let me keep it as blank and we'll add it if required. Let's do the placement and let's see what the output is, and will the output be correct or wrong? That we need to check. So let's go ahead and run it and preview it. So if you see, this one is getting no, there's no second table, right? When I went to the next page, I see a long next table where my comments are printing for the first order also as well as for the second order also. So that means the data is there, the data is clubbed properly, the data is in the data set, but we have to do some changes in the layout so that these two tables can be clubbed together. So right now if you see what is happening, first the first table is executing completely and then the second table comes into picture, right? So how the report executes the layout is, first the data set is prepared and then the layout is executed. Now because these two tables are not linked, this is an independent table and this is an independent table, so first all the data set is whatever the records that you have in data set are executed for this table, and at the end then this table is executed. That's how it works. Now how we can club it. So in today's video we'll introduce a new component, as we were as per the agenda, the list. So let's see how to use a list and what is a list. So insert a list. Okay, so the list is inserted. You can consider list as a container of multiple objects. Okay, now this is a list. Any item that you add, which you discussed in the initial video, you need to go to the table X property and specify the dataset name. Okay, done. Now as I'm saying container, how you can see it is in the properties that its parent is a body, and right now if you go to any table that you have in the dataset in the designer, you'll see the parent as body. All these have the parent as body. Now to club all these, I can actually put these two tables into this list. Okay, so let's try to reduce this and extend this, and let's try to add this table inside the list. Okay, let's try to place it here and let's try to place it here. I'm just using Control X and Control V, and I'm repositioning the list to the top. Okay, let's reduce the size so that it does not go outside of the page, and here we go. Okay, now just to check that my components are inside list, I'll go to the table, I'll select the table, I'll go to the properties, and now my parent is rectangle 1, which is the name of the list, and the same goes for the first table. If I go to the properties, I'll see the rectangle 1. Now let's give it a name so that it's more sensible. Sales order list. So now the parent of these two will be the sales order list. Now with adding these two components inside a list, what I'm telling system is these two tables should be executed together. Okay, but let's see what's the impact of list. We might have to change something else. We'll see that once we run it. Okay, the table X2 has an inner member which cannot be statics. Okay, let's see what the table X2 is. This is the table X1 and this is the table X2. So the error message is, let's read it again, that the table X2 has a detail member which cannot be inside a static member. So my table 2, which is my main table, this one has a detail, that means a body, which will execute with time. So I cannot add it inside a static member. Okay, so what I do to make it generic is I select the list. Okay, I go to the group rows, I go to the group properties, I name it as sales order group, or let's say sales header group, and I add the same grouping that I added earlier. I'm not doing nothing new. Document type and number, because that's my primary key of my sales order. So what I want is that this whole list should repeat, or the container the content of this list, which are the two table links, should repeat for each sales order, should execute for each sales order. So let's try to save it and let's see what happens now. So it's saved. Okay, now let's go back and run it and preview it. So if you see, now this is printing correctly and this is printing correctly, but if you see, I use a page break earlier in the last video, that my every record of the new sales order comes on a separate page, which is not happening now because we placed everything inside a container. So we actually have to tweak something on that, and then there are some spaces that you can see here. We also need to tweak that. So let's go back and open the layout. Now as the container, which is list, have a group, let's go to the group and specify the page break, so that my first problem is gone, which is about the page breaking. I want to have a look. Let's see. So my page break started, right? I don't have any problems with the page break. It's working fine. But you still see these blank rows in the second table, which it should not have, like this, and then there is a space over here. So let's try to solve that also. Now think about it. I have a sales header group here on the list, which is the container of that whole report, and then I have a sales header group that we added earlier for certain other reasons, which is similar to the parent group. So when my whole container is already grouped for the sales order, do I need to specify a second group? Right, you're right, we don't need that now. So let's go ahead and delete that group. So let's delete, and it's asking for the, do you want only group to be deleted, or do you want the rows and the columns to be deleted? So for my this sales header, this is the first line that is a part of this group, and this is the last line that is part of this group. So I'll say delete because I don't have any data inside it. Deleted. Okay, now let's go up and see what is the property for this. Is it visible? Yes. Let's hide it for the time being because that's related to the sales line group which we added earlier. So we'll see how we can use it later, and I'll move these to a bit up. Same to the list. I want to reduce the font size of the font, let's say 7. Extend the length if you want, extended, and we don't want those lines which are appearing, or let the line be. We might need to fix something else also after this. So let's have a look. Okay, so now we have this report which have this line and this line, but there are still 2 lines, and here are 4 lines. What can be the reason why it is coming like this? The reason is very simple, that the second table that we added is for the sales comment header, which actually have 4 records, which are 1 2 3 4. So it's printing 4 lines, and the same goes here. The table have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, so it have 3 plus 4 7 records. Let's try to remove that also. How we do that? And for that we introduce a filtering that we can add here, right? But for that filtering we might need to add something on the data set, which is the way we grouped it. Let's add that here, which is my document line number. Okay, so it's my header document line number. This is my data set name. So if I go to the table properties of my second table, the table X properties, which is printing my comments, header comments, I can actually go and specify some filter in the layout, where I can say that wherever my document line number of this table, which is an integer, is equals to 0, only then print that data into the preview or the printout, right? Let's save it. Let's go back and see what happens. So now I'm not getting those extra rows, right? So we can remove that formatting on those columns so that it looks nice and clear. I think these should, because we are assuming that these are spatial instructions for those orders, that should be with a bigger size and maybe bold if you want. So let's go back and do that. Okay, we want them bold, and maybe not like this, bold, and maybe 10, because these are spatial instructions. I don't need those colors. We know that the borders are coming like because of this property, they are coming because of the border color and all, so we removed it. Now you might plan to have a caption for it, which is spatial order, spatial instructions. So let's save it, and as we know, we discussed in the earlier video, let's go to label and add a label for spatial instruction. Or let's say it order details. Okay, if you remember why we added here, there's a reason, because we want to keep our data set very small, if you remember it, because these are not added into the data set, they are directly available into the designer here as parameters. So if I look for the parameter, I can find it here. I'll add it so it looks like. Now you might want to maybe indent them a bit from this, so you can actually use this, which is the indent. If you want to reduce this, you can reduce it. If you just want not to increase it like this, you can always use the padding property, which is from the left. I want it padded to, let's say, 10, or if you want more, you can add it to 20. So the spatial comments will be printed, and let's try to make it a bit as we wanted it, that it looks okay. I still have those space issues, right? Let's try to place the components as they can be, and you can reduce this space between them. They should never overlap. Remember this, the two tables should never overlap. If you have them on layout, they should have at least some distance between the two tables, that you can use it later. Let's save it, and let's run it now. Still we are getting some space on the top, right? Okay, let's have a look on the layout from where that space is coming. So these are this is one of the row that can have that space. So let's see the visibility, it's hidden. What else we have in the report? Let's have a look again. It should not be that space, should not be printing for sure. There's some space which is letting it grow. If you don't find it, I have a easy way that I use always to identify from which record or from which line those blank lines are displaying on the output. We'll use that otherwise. Okay, maybe we save it as PDF and then see how it is working. And then, because the preview window is a bit different from the print window, so let's see on the PDF how it is working and how it is looking. So you still see a bit of space here on both the orders, right? That should not be there. So let's try to identify the culprit row which is doing it, and the easiest way to do it is using colors. It tells you, and you can always revert it back, right? You can say that my background color, which will always print, Where is my background color? Should I, yeah, background color is, let's say, I'll use this series to identify it easily, and then the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one is not printing, that is visible false, that's for sure. So after this, 1 2 3 and 4 and 5, all these issues that you have on your report should be fixed immediately before you plan to extend those report, because identifying these rows later when the report is, you have more tables, you have a huge data set and all those things, is pretty hard. So if you see, these are the two colors which are repeating, right, and they are increasing on every record. So the first one is this. Let's go ahead and have a look on that. Okay, so let's see. This color seems to be consuming some space because it's printing, and we will see why it is printing. And then this is also consuming some space. These two are creating the problem, right? So let's see the data set, and then we will understand why it is happening. Windows F1. So even the record does not have data, it will print it. So if you see where the line details should be printed, which is this record, it is printing it every time for these many times. So if you see for the first data item, it is printing it twice, right? And then you have the comments, which is this, which are blank for the headers, and then you have the body details which are coming. So that's why it is repeating. So let's try to apply some conditional printing on the report. On this report, or on this data item, I know that it is grouped by line number. Let's specify a visibility, or if you want, can I apply the order number filtering on this? No, I cannot, because it is already grouped on the order number. So I cannot apply that whole table filter, because every line is from the different table. This is from the sales line, this from the comment line. So on this one I need to specify a comment line filter, and on this one I need to specify a sales line filter. So let's see on the data set. On my sales comment line, there is no field that I can specify, right? So let's add one field over here, which is again document line number, and I know that my document line number on sales comment line cannot be 0 when the comment is for the line. So I'll go and I'll say that make this row only visible. So here is show, that means display this line. Here is hide, don't display this line, and here is a condition that you can specify. So what I'm saying is, if I go to the common operator, there you will find something as called as IIF, which is equivalent to if. You can see a small example over here. So if I say if, what my field, so my field is document line number for sales comment line is 0. If it is 0, so if the document line number of the sales comment line is 0, when we are printing the line comments, then it should be hidden, right? Because that's a header comment, and this is, if you notice, this is the expression for hidden. So what I'm saying, if this statement is true, then set hidden to true, otherwise set hidden to false. That means if this if this statement is true, then don't print it or hide it, otherwise make it visible. Okay, so let's see what the impact of this change, and then we will apply on the sales line also, if it works, right? So let's go back and close this preview and run it again. So if you see, that space has been reduced. Now the only space is because of the sales line which is printing, right? So let's apply the filter on the sales line also. And why that is happening? Because if you see the data set, there are some records where the line number of the sales line is blank. so it is printing those lines which it should not. So then let's apply that here, a visibility on a condition, which again I'll go to program flow. If from my data set, if my line number of sales line is equals to 0, if it is 0, then hidden is true, otherwise hidden is false. Simple. So let's see, close it, save it, close it, and let's see what happens. So if you see, there are no spaces now, all the spaces are gone. So let's remove the color. Whatever we wanted, we achieved with those colors, and we don't need those colors. So removing is pretty easy. You can select all those columns where you have color. No, because they all have different colors, so you need to select it, and you'll say background color as no color, background color as no color, and same for the all rows where you colored. So if you wait to fix these issues later in your report, that will be very hard, because it will create that problem that you cannot change now, because you already have a complex report developed. You have so many details on, maybe later we'll create header if you guys require it, require some training on that, so we can also create report headers, and then it'll be very complex to do it. So as soon as you find a problem, let's resolve that. But okay, let's wait here and see what's the changes at this point. If you see, I can see these many filter option. If you remember from the first or the second video, we discussed how we can remove that. I can see two sales line where user can apply filter, but I actually don't want user to apply any filters on that. So let's sort that out before we move forward in next time. What we have to do is we have to specify a key over here and the order. Let's do it here and also here, because I see two comment lines over there. With that being done, let's run the report now. So if you see, I have only one data item on the request page, which is sales header, and that I require user to use it. So if you see now, the report is printing two tables as we wanted. You might be seeing this as getting overlapped. That's because of the height of that column. We have to set that property here. So let's set that off, and then we'll move ahead in next time with a clean and clear report. If you see, because this description can be huge, so what we have to do is either we have to adjust column somehow, that okay, reduce this, increase this, and all those things, or otherwise we have to do something else. So let's try to reduce it first and see how we can adjust it. But you don't know, because the length of that text is 50, so it will be very hard to actually adjust that. So let's try to see if it adjusts. Otherwise we'll cover that part also. If you see now, it looks okay now, right? So this is how you add multiple tables into the layout. Now I hope you understand what are the uses of the list, how list is used, how we add a group in the list, and how to add multiple tables in the layout. Put your comments on the video. Let me know, did you understand the point or not? If not, I'll repeat the steps again. If yes, then let me know what else you want. Do we want to cover headers on the report? Do you want the number of copies option to be in this report? I already have some comments about totaling and all those things. I'll cover it into the next section, next video. Thank you for today, and see you next time. Thank you.